My wife Nancy and I had been married for 4 years when I began to feel the dissonance in our relationship. About a month ago, I heard her say on her cell phone, "No, please don't call like that." Pause. "You should be happy with what you get. Don't push it." Pause. "Okay." I waited a second or two and walked into the room. She started and tucked her phone in her pocket. "Who was on the phone?" I asked, as if it didn't matter. "No one. A telemarketer. You know, Ron, I thought they weren't supposed to call cell phones." "It's me, Ron Rogers. Nancy always called me Ronnie, except when she was nervous. Then she called me Ron. I picked up on that little peculiarity about a year after we were married. Then she was nervous about a neighbor who was bugging her. She called me Ron when I asked her about him, Will Mayberry. And 2 years later, she seemed nervous about a student in her English class. She was a teacher at a local JUCO school. The guy's name was Julio. I never learned his last name. Nothing came out of those times. I had a brief conversation with Will and another with Julio. Will understood right away. Julio had to be convinced that I meant what I said. But he dropped out of class. Nancy was the kind of woman who gets guys' attention. She was 5 feet 8 inches tall, light brown hair, blue eyes, and a very attractive figure. We got married when we were both 23 years old. I had just finished graduate school and was teaching math at a state university. We met a year before the wedding at a picnic hosted by a mutual friend. We struck up a relationship even though she had a beau at the event. His name was Johnny, and she dumped him shortly after I asked her out. We were quite compatible both in and out of bed. But there was a problem in that she couldn't blow off all the guys who hit on her. She seemed to blow off about 99% of them. But there were still a few who could get her to call me Ron. The 2 guys I mentioned never went too far, I thought. But this last one, when she called me Ron, seemed more threatening to me because of the slight change in her behavior, the dissonance I'd mentioned. So the next night I woke up early, went downstairs, and opened her cell phone. She had a PIN number, but I had long ago figured out what it was just by watching her enter it. I never gave the appearance of knowing it. That early morning, I downloaded her data into my laptop. I went to the number of the overheard call, memorized it, and put her phone back on charge. I went back to bed. I slept for another hour and then rolled out, waking Nancy. We brushed our teeth, and then I started fiddling with her. We liked doing it in the morning, but only with fresh breath. It was Saturday. I carried her to bed from the bathroom. We had a good 30 minutes, satisfying each of us. It was business as usual. I felt no inhibition on her part. At breakfast, she said she needed to stop by her office to pick up some papers for grading. I nodded and said I was going for a run. She drove off in her Toyota. I got dressed for the run, turned into the park, and saw her car pull into the JUCO parking lot. So far, so good. She got out of the car but didn't go into the building. Instead, she walked around to the back of it where there was a small pavilion and a softball field. She took a seat on a bench by the picnic table, looking around. About 5 minutes later, a guy approached her. He was large, dark-haired, dressed in sweatpants. He sat down next to Nancy, put his hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away or turn toward him. She looked stiff, and, as much as I looked closely, so did he. I'm not one for small talk. I jogged down the path that wrapped around the building, straight to the picnic table. Nancy saw me first, but by then I had almost caught up with them. Her eyes widened, and she tried to get up, but the guy plowed her back down. "Ron, what are you doing here, kid?" She was furious. The guy finally saw me. He was looking at Nancy's chest. He didn't remove his hand. But Nancy stood up. He didn't pull her back this time. "I'm just making a jog. The real question is what you're doing when this guy puts his arm around you." The guy stood up. He was taller and more massive than me. My height was 180 centimeters. He was taller than me by 2 inches and maybe 30 pounds. I wasn't too worried about him. I have skills honed from early childhood. Of course, the fact that I retained those skills was due to the fact that I was pretty good at them. I had good athleticism in general, but I had extraordinary hand-eye coordination and quickness. This guy looked trim and strong. He seemed to be very confident. He asked, "Who is this guy, Nancy?" "My husband. He's my husband." Her voice trembled slightly. I said, "I'd like to know who the underdog is and why you lied to me. You must have a good explanation." The guy spoke up. Or what? It doesn't belong to you. I looked at him from about 6 feet away. I said, "Shut the fuck up!" I didn't raise my voice. But after I said that, he didn't look so confident anymore. Nancy said, "This is Roberto. He's the instructor here. We're friends, but you don't have to worry. No worries, Ron." Another Ron. This was serious. "Bullshit!" Again, in a level voice, looking straight at her, she went pale. I turned to Roberto. "You? Go away?" "No, I don't need to go anywhere." I took a step toward him, just one. He backed away. He was a little uncomfortable. Nancy looked at us in turn. "Roberto, you have to leave. You have to leave, please. This is my business." "He could hurt you, Nancy. I won't let that happen." Nancy was half frightened and half indignant at his words. "Go! He won't hurt me. But if you do anything stupid, he'll hurt you. Please go." Roberto hesitated, too long for my taste. I took another step and another. He backed away and turned around. He was gone. He didn't say another word. I watched him round the corner of the building, then I jogged after him. There are too many guns in this world. He walked to his car, got in it, and drove off. Nancy was now standing right behind me. "I didn't do anything wrong, Ron. I didn't—" "Oh, I can't say I believe that. Will you give me a ride home?" "Okay." We walked over to her car, got in it. She started it up and drove out of the parking lot. That's how we got the paperwork from her office. On the way, we hardly spoke at all. When we got into the house, I immediately went to my computer and scrutinized her phone data. There were numerous calls to the phone that had been called from the day before. The number was listed as RG. The calls had been going on for about 3 weeks. I checked her messages. There were 12 messages from that number. They were increasingly flirtatious and from both sides. There was no doubt that this guy was Roberto. Twice they had made lunch dates. After the last one, 3 days before, a flurry of phone calls followed. He sent her one text message the same evening. It said, "Thanks, it was great." I went downstairs. Nancy was in the kitchen making a sandwich. She asked, "Would you like one?" "Sure, thanks. I want to talk to you about Roberto. You lied and let a guy hug you. What's going on? And I'm warning you, I want to know the truth." "He was stalking me. That's all it is. I wanted to warn him today." "Uh-huh." "No, really, that's why I was there." "Did you cheer him up?" "Maybe a little bit. He's attractive. Everyone gets a little crazy sometimes." "Whose nuts are these, eh?" "I was just having a little fun, Ron. Nothing was supposed to happen." "You know what? Let me see your phone." She stepped back. "No, you don't trust me?" "No, I definitely don't trust you. If you won't let me see your phone, then I know you're lying and probably slept with that guy. So, we're done." "Well?" Ron, please, this guy is not a problem for us, I swear." He held out his hand. "Phone." She handed it over. He asked, "What number?" She told him. He didn't want to show he knew it. He flipped through the messages, the calls. "You answered. What did he mean by saying, 'thanks'? That was great." She lowered her eyes. I thought I owed him something, so I turned him on. Just once, Ron." Too many Rons. But what was a lie? "What were you going to do today?" "Nothing. I told you I was going to get it over with. That's why I met him outside and not in the building. I swear, Ronnie." "Well, that's 3 times now. A little farther each time. Maybe we're done?" "What do you mean 3 times? Not true." "Will Mayberry and Julio? You think I don't know about them?" "Nothing happened with either of them. Maybe a kiss or two." "Yes, I do know. I paid each of them a little visit. Until things got out of hand. Or should I say out of control. That's why Julio quit. And Will said his wife suspected something, but I wasn't going to do anything special with either of them." "No, Ron, no." "Look, Nancy, I can't go on like this. I don't want to always be on guard. Maybe this is it for us." I wasn't kidding. This whole thing was getting tiresome. I walked out. Nancy was crying, but quietly. I went back to JUCO and went into Roberto Martinez's office. It was in the hallway next to Nancy's office. I knocked and walked in. He was surprised. I sat down in the chair by his desk. He looked nervous. "You shouldn't be in here. I can call security." "Are you married?" "None of your business." But he glanced at the ring on his left hand. "I can find it easily, you know that. But I don't want trouble with you. I just want answers. I want to know exactly what happened that made you so grateful a few days ago." He stammered. I said, "You have a free pass. I want to settle the issue of my marriage, not hurt you. I could do that right now, but if you lie, I'll come back." "Good. You have to stay away from her from now on. If she sits with you, you leave. Understood?" "Yes, although it can be tricky sometimes. At team meetings. We'll do your best. But I warn you, if I find out there's been more going on, it won't be pretty. And you know, here's my card. If you see anything I should know about, please contact me." "Okay, I guess. There was a guy like that, Julio. But he quit." I know. I walked out of the building, satisfied that I knew the truth. The question was what to do about it. If I had been asked a hypothetical question about a wife doing a guy a sex favor, I would have said kick her to the curb. But Nancy was a great wife, except for one thing. But a very important thing. She was smart, loved the same things I did, laughed, was outgoing, and I loved her. Eventually, I married her. She was fantastic in bed, too. Nothing to sneeze at. I walked into the house. Nancy was in the kitchen. She had stopped crying by now, but she looked worried. She also looked sexy. She was wearing a short dress with a slit. She was barefoot. She changed into it after I left. That's what she wore when she wanted sex. Well, why not? I just stepped toward her and picked her up. I threw her over my shoulder and went upstairs to the bedroom. She was laughing. She didn't ask me to put her down on the floor. I threw her on the bed. She got on her knees and took off her dress. She was naked. His plan was definitely working. I pulled off my shirt and threw off my shorts. I was exhausted. I don't know about her. She fell forward onto her stomach, but as she did so, she wiggled her sexy ass. "Are we done, Ronnie?" Such a double hint had me enthralled. "Yes and no," I said, panting. She pressed herself against me. I sensed she was manipulating me. She knew she was in trouble. She knew our marriage was in deep shit. It was her way of justifying herself. Hell, she did a great job. She pressed herself against me. "I like it when you punish me. Is it still punishment?" She laughed out loud. I said, "We still need to talk." "Talking is overrated." She reached for me. An hour later, we showered, got some clothes on, and went downstairs. I said, "You did that guy a sex favor. I was talking to him." "I'm sorry, Ronnie. I get restless sometimes. You're the best in bed I've ever had, but sometimes I get nervous too. Guys try on me all the time. I've been trying to dress decent, make myself look bad. No, it doesn't work. I wave most of them off. But sometimes, one really attracts me." "This guy, Roberto, were you going to sleep with him?" "No, I don't think I could go that far. I think a sex favor is pretty far, but I've never let him get into my panties or even grope me." "Well, I think you need to make a change. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. As much as I'd like to move on with my life, I wouldn't want it either, as you've perfectly demonstrated. I will if this keeps up. I don't know what else can be done. I suppose I could get fat. Why don't you put it this way? If you feel it's starting to happen, before you start reacting to some guy, we should talk things out. I can just sleep with you until you can't think about anyone else, like you just did with me." "That could work. I promise I'll say something." She smiled. "I can be fucked into total submission any time I say I like another guy. How do you know I'm telling the truth?" I promise that any time you ask, I will. You won't have to lie." "Now. I want it now." "Oh, you mean again?" She laughed. There was a real sparkle in her eyes. "This is serious, Nancy. No more teasing or sex favors. But I'll do what I can." We left it at that until that evening when we went to bed. She has the most fantastic body. Life went on. We had 2 children, a boy named Stephen and a girl named Betty. We thrived as a family, and Nancy only spoke to me twice about being attracted to another guy. I was never sure if she was lying, but I wasn't taking any chances. I kept myself in good shape just in case. After all, even now she has the most fantastic body. I'm very glad I didn't kick her out. I didn't divorce her. We have 3 grandchildren, and they all live nearby. Some life decisions don't come easy. This was one of them. But Nancy got herself out of trouble. Who am I to complain?